Right, we're now going to do the graded wash, and in many respects here's the flat wash that we did previously, and the graded wash is only the same as the flat wash at the top of the sky, except that it just gets a little bit lighter as it gets down towards the horizon, which is much more representative of what a proper sky looks like, unless there's some severe stormy conditions. But let's have a look at the graded wash. Just to prove you don't need the flat brush all the time, here's the round brush number 12 that I'm going to use. Again, I've mixed a lot of blue paint in the palette, but before I start, what I'll do is make a little border around here and I'll paint inside it. Then that makes sure that everybody gets to see it, and depending on what your TV system setup is, that you don't get any of the picture cut off. Now I'm using a graphite pencil here, and here's a useful little tip. I know this isn't anything to do with skies, but I'll mention it anyway. To get a straight line, I'm running my fingers down the edge of the board here. I'm not worried too much about trying to draw a straight line freehand. All I'm doing is running my fingers down the edge of the board and letting the pencil touch the paper like that. And if I concentrate on keeping my fingers at the edge of the board, you can see that I get a nice straight line. I'll do that again here, running my fingers along the edge of the board. It's not ruler straight, but it's good enough for what we want. And then finally we'll do the same again here. Right, I'll put my board back against those little marks so I know it's right. That looks right in front of the picture for you, in the middle of the picture. Right, let's carry on with the graded wash. So we're starting off as we did before with a brush full of strong blue paint at the top that's going to start running down. The difference is now that we put the brush into water and add that to the paint, and so when we pick up the paint it's slightly lightened off, and then we do the same again. Pick up some more water, put it into the paint each time and lighten it off, and you can see that because it's more watery it's running down the board much quicker. Lighten it off again. Each time I'm adding more and more water to the watery paint, and you can see how it's lightening off until I'm almost, and let's pretend this is the horizon line here, I'm almost putting neat water into the paint. Now there's an interesting phenomenon just arisen here. It would be very irritating normally, and I'm tempted to stop and do this graded wash again, but I'm going to leave it. And I don't know whether you can see in the middle of the paper two light areas have suddenly emerged, and what's happened there is that at some point I've got a finger mark, or there's a little bit of grease on my fingers must have got on the paper there, and you can see what happens. Now as it happens, I could well see that that could form part of a sky if I was painting this as a proper painting, but it could quite easily ruin a painting before you've even started it. So do take care of your watercolour paper, keep it away from grease, do keep your hands clean at all times, otherwise that sort of situation can happen and spoil it before we start. So there's something I really didn't expect to happen when I was going to do this demonstration, but I'm going to leave that because I think it'll be quite helpful for you to see it. And above all, you can see again how easy it is to produce a graded wash. Here it's lightened off to almost nothing at the horizon. If I was doing it again, I'd probably do that a little bit darker because I suspect that's going to dry quite light when it's finished. But you can see how easy it is to produce just by adding water to each brush stroke and then coming down until you're almost putting neat water on at the bottom. And there is the graded wash, complete with the start of some nice clouds, which I'd like to say was deliberate, but I can't take any credit for whatsoever. Right, we've now covered the two most basic washes that you need to produce a sky, the flat wash and the graded wash. But before we move on, to other skies, I wanted to just show you a comparison of the atmosphere that you can create just by the way in which you put paint on the paper. Here's the flat wash that we produced earlier, and I've added a little hint of trees and a bit of a hillside in the background using a bit of the same ultramarine blue, a little touch of light red and a little slightly stronger touch of raw sienna. But you can see how it's a very dark and moody atmosphere. In fact, it's almost a nighttime atmosphere. You can just imagine the last rays of sun have disappeared behind the hills and the light is rapidly disappearing. With the graded wash, because this lightens off towards the horizon, you've got very obviously a daytime scene, the same sort of background. Now you can see the touches of light red and ultramarine. You can certainly see the touch of raw sienna in the foreground, which could be fields or whatever you want it to be. But you can see how it's a much brighter, more cheerful daylight atmosphere, and perhaps might be an early morning sun with a hint of mist. Right away, just by mastering these two basic washes, and you've seen how they're not difficult to produce, how you create a tremendous range already in just two washes of different sorts of sky. So let's go and have a look at some more skies now, so you've got even more of them in your armoury.